At the end of my 10 best quests video, I mentioned wanting to do a worst quests video. However, putting together the list of the 10 worst was surprisingly hard. In fact, it might have been tougher than the best. Going back and thinking of the mediocre quests wasn't that challenging, but really trying to fish out what the worst of the worst was quite tough. Were the annoying quests the worst, like One Small Favor or Elemental Workshop 3? Spoilers, neither of those make this list. Or was it the boring quests, like Perils of Ice Mountain or As a First Resort? It may have worked out if I'm naming something here it's not on the list. That made them especially bad? In the end, my criteria for the worst ended up being threefold. Firstly, if a quest didn't feel impactful by the end, it lost a lot of points for me. I enjoy doing quests that make me feel like I'm actually doing something and end with me feeling like I succeeded or at least make progress towards my mission. Secondly, if a quest was boring, it had a better chance of making this list. If the gameplay sucked and I felt like a quest was a chore, it was a bad quest. Weak rewards don't help. Thirdly, if a quest felt like a lore fail or a logic fail, it likely made this list. Many quests have little fails here and there, but it takes a major screw-up for a quest to feel like that the whole way through. Several of the top quests in this list fall into this category especially. With those things in mind, I've compiled 10 quests, with 5 bonus mentions, as in the last video, that I believe are the 10 worst quests in the entire game. So, I'm a Masket, and here's the 10 worst quests in Runescape. Number 10. Bringing Home the Bacon. First on this list is a quest that really should have been better, and that one is Bringing Home the Bacon. For a quest that was all about introducing a new food to the game, it really didn't try very hard to make that food worth my time. Jagex could have just popped the pigpens into the game with minimal fanfare, and we'd honestly have been better off. From the weak attempts at humor, to the horrifyingly out-of-character villagers, to the boring gameplay, the quest just doesn't work. Even the few moments that do work, the scene in Draenor Market with the thief comes to mind, they don't redeem this quest. The subtext of Eli being a cannibal really wasn't all that funny either, and just kind of left a bad taste in my mouth. I'd say the worst part about this quest really is just how horribly boring the gameplay is through, and how unimpactful the quest ends up being, in a bad way. It's just a checklist of doing basic things and then visiting 4 cities. It's even clear Jagex didn't care about this quest because it took them nearly 3 years to fix the bugged-out pig swill brew, as until recently it wasn't even possible to make. This quest was a basic quest that served only to introduce a bunch of completely useless items simply because somebody wanted to add bacon. Shame. Number 9. If you know me, you know I'm a huge fan of the Desert series, and I commonly say it's the best in the game. 3 of the quests in this series took 2 of the spots on my 10 best quest list. So, what's this quest doing on the list? That one's Lauren's little helper. In short, this entry into the Desert series isn't just weak, but it actively turns off people doing the rest of the series due to the heavy weaknesses the quest presents in the puzzles and the story content. Making matters worse to me, the quest has so much potential, but it squanders all of it by being tedious and subpar in every way possible. With the brilliant relaunch at the start of the Desert series, players are really sent off on a high note, ready to battle a Masket and given hints as to where the series goes next. The 4 god aspects are introduced and the story is set to progress. Except it doesn't. At all. Meet a disguised Masket who decides hypnotizing you is a good idea to steal a canopic jar that causes a plague, but in reality the plague has no effect, but for some reason it's going to cause Menaphos to close its doors. Except Menaphos is already closed since a Masket's already taken it over, and you have to put the canopic jar back to finish the quest, only for it to be stolen by somebody else after the quest ends with no way to fix things up. Yes, that was fast. And yes, that was a run-on sentence, but by God, the quest is convoluted and bad. The setup's great too. You get conned into stealing an artifact and are trying to delve into your memories to discover what you did and how to stop it. If the quest didn't invalidate everything you do, I'd be more okay with this quest. Sadly, the gameplay is awful too, though, with a boring pyramid to solve that doesn't really indicate its puzzles or traps well. It even has a horrible weight puzzle that's never really been done in the manner it expects you to just naturally know how to do. Then you have to do a small fight, see more flashbacks, and briefly see Claren. Unfortunately, the quest doesn't even really bother to introduce him as well, so you're left with a really stilted view of the desert gods, and in fact your whole little adventure was worth nothing. This quest needs a rework. I can't say it enough. It really deserves it. Number 8 on the list is Hero's Quest. Useless quests are never fun to do, and this quest is really one of the most useless of all. In this quest, you are asked to do 3 pointless tasks to get into a guild that doesn't really have anything inside it. The tasks are mundane and clunky for the most part, but they culminate in an exercise in frustration that is a duo quest section. You require a second player to also do some overly specific things and be in the opposite gang as the player. making it way more annoying than it needs to be just to get this section done and even find somebody to help you out. The story brings this quest down so much, too. The other guild quests all have stories woven through them to keep them interesting and unique. Dragon Slayer unlocks the Champion Guild and serves as a quest to defeat a powerful dragon, serving as kind of the ending to the free-to-play story. Legends Guild is a deep dive into Gramja's history and horrifying demons that await there. Hell, even the Max Guild is in Prifdhanas, and that's a whole quest series. But this quest, Heroes Quest, simply asks you to go pick a feather from a phoenix, steal a band, and fish an eel. There's no story, there's no tie-in, there's not even a theme. In the end, the sheer unsatisfying end, the lack of narrative thread to tie these tasks together, and the horrible, clunky gameplay makes this easily one of the worst quests in the game. Number 7. Jagex has released a lot of quests that serve to simply introduce a random D&D, minigame, or skilling piece. Dwarf Cannon, all fired up, big chompy bird hunting. They're all weaker quests that exist just to introduce something. Bringing home the bacon's another one of those quests, as mentioned above, but there's more that are worse. One such quest is Tower of Life. Introducing one of the clunkiest D&Ds in the game, but potentially one of the most useless. Tower of Life isn't just a bad quest due to the strange and often useless gameplay. It's often a bad quest due to the immensely strange lore that seems to contradict a ton of things we've since learned about gods, life, and the structure of the world itself. Gameplay-wise, the clunky mechanics, annoyingly complex material gathering for the puzzles, and the beyond awkward puzzles, the quest suffers pretty heavily, not offering much that is all that fun. But it's the dialogue and the story that really do bring this down, as mentioned. The homunculus makes absolutely zero sense from a lore standpoint, nor does the horrible creature creation minigame. The alchemists are nonsensical and uncharacterized. The homunculus is creepy in a bad way, and even the creation of the tower seems to make little sense. The basement of the tower is especially out there, with the strange Zamorakian symbol on the map and the strange disco floor that still has no purpose, explanation, or really, point. The quest serves to confound in a way that doesn't make you want to know more, it just makes you want to know why it was made. Number 6 is going to be quick. Simcatcher. There's not really anything I can say about this quest, so I'll keep it short and sweet. This quest is a quest from another MMO. Go bring me some bear asses. You go hunt imps and bring back 4 beads and the quest ends. Story's weak, dialogue's non-existent, the gameplay doesn't even serve to introduce anything. It's just there as a useless quest. And it's third on my personal list for quests that need a rework, behind Iglaren's Little Helper and another quest further in the line. Simply for being a buyable or fetch quest with really nothing else to it. It's a bad quest. Speaking of quests that need a rework, a Soulsbane is number 2 on that list. But since it is on that list, it's 5th on this one. The reason this quest is so high on my list isn't even necessarily that it's outright awful, but that it has so much potential but manages to squander it in almost every way possible. The story has a ton of opportunity to be amazing. The gameplay is chock full of ideas, and the lore screams at interesting things, but never quite does it well enough to lead to them. It took Jagex essentially hinting at a retcon to even give this quest any purpose, and that hint just cries for a rework to the quest itself. Gameplay-wise is really a major part of why I dislike this quest. The ideas are all clean and solid, but the execution ends up just painful. The Rage Room plays with the idea of specific monsters requiring specific weapons, but doesn't really do anything with it, just kills some. Of the rooms, it's easily the least problematic though, because next was Fear, which I argue is the worst of the lot. Broken Homes essentially shattered any chance of this quest being the creepy quest in the game. I mean, look at it. It's literally a tiny black box that pops up, not even fully obscuring your screen, and a scary monster pops up. It's just laughable. It's really bad. The Confusion Beasts have a comically easy tell, the correct one has a health bar, and the Hopelessness Beasts are just clunky and awkward. Just kill them until they die. Then there's the boss fight. You awkwardly kill a couple of easy-to-fight heads. It's rough. It's boring. Then the rewards let you go into the rift to fight stuff, except they're all basic monsters instead of retaining effects, and they all drop nothing. Yeah. Story-wise, it's horribly nonsensical, especially now. You go into a random rift in the ground, which is somehow not a rift, but really a portal into Tolna's mind, which has somehow just been there for a crazy number of years. You then fight through 4 weird emotion sectors, and find Tolna turn into a weird Hydra thing. Now that we know what Lornab is, this at all at least gets put into some context, but the way the story is told doesn't do well to tie into that piece of lore, and the rework could easily fix it. Let's not even really go into the graphics. They suck. The interfaces suck with the Fear Beast. The environment sucks. It's just bad. I want this quest to be good, too. It really could be. Jagex, please get on it. 4. A quest so bad that Jmod streamed it and spent hours just cursing at it. And number 4, we have Sheepherder. This quest is useless. Herd some not actually sick sheep and kill them. I honestly don't even want to waste much time talking about this one. Kinda like Imcatcher, really. It's clunky, it's pointless, and it doesn't even require any quests. It fits awkwardly into the Elf Plague storyline in a bad way. It's not fun. It's not good. It's not rewarding. It's a really just bad quest, even with the fixes. Ugh. Now, it's time to get into the worst of the worst. The top 3. I still don't know how I talked this one down to just 3rd. I hate this quest. It ruined a beautiful story in a horrible way and spawned a mocking meme, and disappointed a huge bunch of people as well. This quest, at number 3, is Salt in the Wound, the unfortunate finale to the Sea Slug series. Before this quest, we had some serious setup for several more quests involving the wicked Mother Malum expanding across the world, and our attempts to stop her. A return of the Slug Prince, some Lovecraftian horror, and the mystery of Kenneth's powers were all things people were excited for. Instead, we got none of that, giving us instead a bunch of random plot devices to magically kill Malum. Kenneth growing up randomly, characters showing up randomly, dungeoneering being shoehorned in, and the infamous Pillar. This quest is 3rd on the list though, because while the story is one of the absolute worst ever done, the gameplay isn't horrible. It's nothing amazing, but at the very least it's not awful, and it offers at least a bit of enjoyment here and there. The story even has a single bright note through all of the crap before it. As Mother Malum dies, her host kind of awakes and discovers where she is, but she still thinks herself a child. She's blind and old and dying. It was a shockingly poignant moment in the quest that I hadn't expected based on the clunky storytelling and dialogue from the rest of it. But even with that one moment, the sheer disappointment of a quest series being so just squandered as it was in Salt in the Wound, with all my gameplay at times and clunky at others, leaves this release as one of the worst ever done. I'm glad Jagex has taken their time with sequels now to perhaps try and ensure a train wreck of this type never happens again. If it does, I guess we'll just have to drop a pillar on it. In number 2 is one of our most recent quests. Billed as a deep dive back onto Tutorial Island and investigating the mystery as to why it sunk. Beneath Cursed Tides instead sunk itself with a lack of mystery, horrible characters and dialogue, and some really weak puzzle elements. But even worse than all of those negatives is the incredibly rushed feeling the quest has, alongside the massive slew of logical errors and mistakes that leave the experience feeling incredibly sloppy. On my initial playthrough, I didn't even hate this quest. I did a review of it and gave it like a 7 or something. But it felt like a fairly weak quest, and I had a lot of reservations about it. But it wouldn't have been this high up my list if I hadn't spent a bit of time thinking about it and then replayed it on an alternate account. This time around, I was looking at it a lot more critically, and began to find some serious flaws in the pacing, the storytelling, and gameplay, but most of all the environment. See, this quest runs into a serious issue of being chock full of major logical issues that don't make sense and actually weaken the story as a whole. From minor touches, like the fact there are fully working and readable books and a calendar underwater, to more serious issues like the Crassians just randomly turning up for the villain, and the fact he just so happens to write a note happily explaining his whole backstory and solving the mystery of the island in the opening couple scenes of the quest. The logic holes writing this quest poke little holes in the narrative as the quest continues, slowly filling the whole mess with leaking mediocrity, until the whole thing just slips below the waves. Storytelling-wise, things don't even get much better. The villain is a joke and a weak caricature of the Wicked Wizard. His backstory is strange and nonsensical, his motives are frankly absolutely idiotic, and the way he's written and used is laughably poor. It's a shame too, as he could have been a fascinating villain if he simply was given a real motivation to attempt to destroy the island. Unfortunately, the rushed nature of the quest, it appeared to have been developed in under a month due to the team neglecting to start working on the Runescape project until incredibly late for some reason. The little things add up across the board. There's so much else I could discuss about this quest too that I simply won't to not just take up 15 minutes going on about how this quest disappointed me. But in essence, I found most of the character work weak, the plot poorly designed, and the puzzles that appeared increasingly strange and forced. One thing I do want to draw notice to is the horrible overuse of references scattered all over this quest, not in a fun way, but in a forced and somewhat cringy way. A character saying "Senpai" actually made me stop for several moments to just close my eyes and wish I hadn't seen that. It's a real shame. The pitch had potential, and the summary given, work out the mystery of how the island sunk, seemed strong. But instead there wasn't any mystery, just running around doing dull tasks and then Harry Pottering the villain, literally, as characters develop without any impetus to. I wish this one had been given more time, or, as much as I hate to say it, different developers, so that it resulted in more care and perhaps a more consistent and creative tone. The humor didn't work, and it left me high and dry even at the depths of the sea. Yeah, I'm done with the water puns now, sorry. Now, before we move on to the number 1 spot, I'm going to go over a few dishonorable mentions, organized in what would be the 11th through 15th spot. Those quests are: number 11, Catapult Construction. The quest where we help a guy who should know what he's doing build and test a catapult. Yes, a catapult. They ask a random adventurer who accidentally killed their leader to help them build a giant death machine. Seriously. This quest is legitimately just fix it up, play with some tetrominos, fire a catapult, and then done. And at the end you get better at catapulting in Castle Wars, which destroyed the meta for a few months when the quest came out. Yeah, there was a Castle Wars meta back then. Whatever. But when it comes to the quest though, Juno from the Tears of Gothics really does know best. Catapults are terrible devices. They move rocks from their proper Gothics assigned positions. Thanks, Juno. I'm glad you summed it up for us. Number 12 might be a bit odd for some people, you know who you are. And this quest would be Birthright of the Dwarves. Turn down your sound here for a moment. I'll give you a second. This quest should have been so amazing, it had a vote for it to happen while John A. wrote and developed it. It was a finale for a beloved quest series, and it seemed like it would have been amazing. The design doc was even written, but no, it was a rushed piece of garbage. Thank you. I needed to get that out. This quest was rushed through development, given zero graphical support beyond the Blanket Dwarf rework, which somehow broke everyone's favorite Sincere graphically for something like 2.5 years, and featured bland puzzles, spammy content, and some of the most blatant asset reuse I've ever seen in a quest, along with some really dodgy plotting. The main villain of this series just suddenly backs off after the development of King of the Dwarves to plot in his cloned castle. It was a bit of a disgrace. Luckily it didn't ruin the series as badly as Salt of the Wound did. It was coherently written, and at least it made some sense. But everything else this quest tried to do managed to stumble repeatedly. Jagex didn't seem to care about the quest either, as it took over a year to release the promised post-quest content that was intended to come 2 weeks after the release. Luckily, that content did eventually come and was honestly worth the wait, but after that wait being so long, it was more like a Dwarf series epilogue than it was part of the quest itself, and I really consider them separate. I think the most disappointing part about this quest, though, was, to me, that John A. wrote it and managed to be so weak. He's a brilliant writer, having done such classics as The Chosen Commander, and even has released a wonderful standalone sci-fi story. But he managed to stumble so heavily when rushed for time and budget, as he was here, that finale wasn't worth it. Number 13. Monk's Friend. Hippie party monks. Rescuing a freaking blanket for a monk's kid. What? Inside a secret invisible dungeon where thieves stole and said freaking blanket, and then they just freely let you take it off the table they left it on while standing there passively. And you go fix a drunk monk, no wonder one of them has a kid, cart, and bring wine to the party monks. Then balloons fall and everyone dances. Does this quest actually exist? God, it's so logical and dumb. You gotta pop balloons for an ardent task. Oh, I wish we had to pop a different balloon for that test, though. The one in number 14. Enlightened Journey. Simple boop with a needle would have removed any need for this quest. It opens an inconvenient travel option that requires logs to be carried, but at least someone at Jagex stopped the developer from requiring the minigame to be played every time you tried to travel. This quest is so dull, though. It's basically you playing around with origami to help Brother Auguste while he tries to make a proper balloon, and then solving a super strange puzzle on a very buggy, unupdated interface to fly from Entrana to Taberley. And then the quest ends and you get some cosmetics. It's just strange. Number 15. Let them eat pie. On second thought, let's not eat pie. And with all those out of the way, number 1. The coveted number 1 spot. It goes to a quest so useless, so painful, and so boring, the minigame, D&D, whatever it was created to introduce, is being removed from the game because it is so horrible. The quest is so useless and so forgettable, I had to look up sections of it to confirm they were actually in the quest or I'd have forgotten. Rat Catchers. The quest is the epitome of the useless quest to introduce a lame minigame that I've been complaining about above. Bringing him the Bacon, Tower of Life, Catapult Construction, nothing on this one. Even slightly better quests like All Fired Up and Pie or Need or Shades of Morton do this type of quest better. be it through better character or environment work, less clunky gameplay, or even just better storytelling, or even a better end mini-game. But this one just failed on every level. The quest is a fully cat-focused quest, which seemed to have a lot of quests around this time. Lauren's Little Helper also had a heavy focus on casts, albeit for better reasons, oddly enough. This quest is simply about hunting rats for a secret group of exterminators who for some reason seem to want you involved in their order, when all you asked Gertrude was for some tips for your cat. So you traverse a house that somehow is invisible in Ardoon, yay, scale theory, have your cat fight a super big rat, smoke some weeds, and some who actually, I don't know why, and learn to charm a fucking snake to help you with rats? Beyond the painfully strung together plot, we have a series of horribly clunky interfaces that are also barely holding on. The cat vs. rat fight is painful and exceedingly hard to do, and if your cat fails, it dies, and you have to go get a totally new one. The snake charmer is so strange mechanics-wise, and you input one note at a time on a page and that's it. The actual rat pits themselves are a mess of code and absolutely unrewarding, and they died instantly. Best reward by far is the ability to, wait for it, name your cat. Anything you like below 6 whole characters. Shame we can't do this with birds, or it'd be like Twitter or something. Laugh at my joke, please. Honestly, though, the reason this quest is number 1 over some serious atrocities in questing is simply how boring, basic, and useless it is. It adds nothing of value to the game, like many others on this list has, and it has no real bright moments to make you want to push on a bit further. There's no valuable rewards to entice you, and it deals with some poorly designed puzzles and interfaces that make you not want to continue at all. I'd honestly like to just see this quest thrown to the dogs alongside the rat pits themselves, but sadly it seems that while the minigame is going away, the painful excuse of a quest will be with us a while longer. How unfortunate. And that's the top 10, plus 5. What'd you think? Am I right with every single one of these quests like you know I am? You know I am. What other horrible quests did I miss? Did I absolutely ignore everyone telling me to put one small favor on this list? Yes, I did. Now, please let me know, as I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thank you so much for watching, and keep an eye out for more quest-related content. More Rune Secrets will be coming regularly, a review for the God Wars Dungeon 2 will be coming as well, and proper reviews for every quest in the game is well underway and should be hitting the channel soon with the first episode. If you have any other ideas for quest-related top 10s, please do let me know. If the idea seems good enough as well, I might go ahead with that top 10 quest that should be reworked, though I worry it might be a bit redundant with this list. Also, huge thanks to Crondis for doing the video editing on this video. I've been Amaskit, and thanks for watching. Why are you still here? Go do good quests.